Hi, welcome to Panther Podcast. We had a bit of an issue with our recording when I was talking with Ms. Doring about food insecurity. So this is going to be the intro. We are going to discuss food insecurity and what that means, and also what we as a community can do, both if we are experiencing food insecurity and also if we are not, to help those who are experiencing food insecurity. So enjoy the conversation.
Food insecurity is just the inability to have consistent access to healthy food without having to travel a long distance. Technically, well, I guess it's not really a technical term, but the term food desert is used a lot, where it describes how usually more so in urban settings, but it is an issue in rural settings as well. A food desert is considered to be anywhere that you would have to travel over a mile to get to fresh, healthy food. So fresh fruits and vegetables, things that you would not find at a local like corner store or like convenient mart, things like that.
Food desert, I've often heard it more in access to a variety of food, but we can also use the term just for general, even if it's just, hey, there's one place to get it, that's still, in this definition at least, would make that not a food desert. Food deserts are really looking at a totality in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. And I think that's interesting because, I think it came into my lexicon with like, higher end food, but I think I like that definition even better, and I think it really helps with kind of the issues that we might see faced. So what about locally? What are we looking at as far as accessibility? Do we have a problem with accessibility to high quality food?
Yeah, definitely. We're seeing Park is in a food desert, actually, if you want to contextualize it. The number of, and this is just a Wisconsin statistic, but 1 in 11 people struggle with food insecurity, and then also break that down even further, 1 in 7 children. So it's pretty high, and it is definitely an issue locally, for sure.
So, locally, is there an issue, a complete issue of accessibility, or are there resources that people may not know about that aren't being utilized fully?
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about like that accessibility issue first. So, what causes someone to, just the fact that there might not be a store that offers food is one element of this, but then you have to consider transportation. If someone doesn't have transportation to get to a store to buy healthy food, then that adds to the insecurity, which is a reason why I like to use that word, because you may have food that you can get, but if you don't have transportation to get there, that's a whole nother issue. I've spoken with former students that say they don't really want to take public transportation because they don't feel it's safe. And relying on friends or family just to go to the store to get food, and then also storage. Do they have a place to store it? Do we have a working refrigerator, electricity, things like that in the home, or the residence, to be able to store things, to keep them safe to eat and available. Food only lasts so long. So usually things that are cheaper, prepackaged, will last a long time, but they're not the healthiest stuff. The things that are healthier, the fresh fruits and vegetables, fresh meats, things like that. And those, you're going to have a refrigerator in order to keep them, for any length of time.
Or even with fresh fruits and vegetables that can be kept without a refrigerator, you're going to have to go more often then, and so it brings in the trend.
Correct. Right. So yeah, making more frequent trips then, bounces back to the transportation issue. So.
And this connects to one of the other podcasts I did recently with Mr. Vidic. We were talking about living greener, and we were talking about that issue of public transit. So the students you talk to who are in this sort of situation where the transportation is an issue, a lot of it is feeling comfortable with the resources that are there. Is that
Yeah.
kind of a good feeling?
Yeah, just standing out waiting for a bus to come. If the neighborhood that they live in isn't, one that they feel safe to just be standing outside by themselves waiting for a time period. And then just, I guess, the busing system themselves. I've not really done a lot of, traveling with public transportation. I thought it probably would be a good idea if I did, just to kind of get more of a handle on, what is this like for other people. But just the actual, trusting people, or even using Uber. I've heard a lot of people say, yeah, I'm not going to do that because, being in a car, with one other person just doesn't feel safe to them.
Well, and the other problem with Uber is expensive, so it creates that accessibility issue. So if you already, I know some people who do use Uber as their main form of transport, but that's usually a temporary necessity because of a broken down vehicle or something. If that's going to become your main way to get to the store, you're going to have a long-term issue.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Is some of the issue here in Racine also just location of supermarkets and things? That seems to be part of the reason we're in a food desert. Is everything's out on Green Bay or
Right,
up
yeah.
north?
Yeah. Yeah, you've got all of that, so you've got your 3 Piggly Wiggly locations, one on the far south side on Durand, one on the far north side in Caledonia, and then, I guess and then I'm talking Piggly Wiggly, right? And then one right up here, Washington, yeah. I'm sorry, the Piggly Wiggly is on 3 Mile in Erie on the northern side. But then Pick and Save, you've got, they're all outlying farther away. So in the downtown area, kind of close, where there's a higher concentration actually of people living, you have less available, plus just that more urban setting. Maybe people don't necessarily consider or think about gardening, just because of the limited space that they might have. Although that is changing, and we can talk about that here as well. But there's a Racine Urban Garden Network has really started to work hard at using some empty lots and places within the city area where there isn't really a good short distance to get to some fresh food, planting some gardens that people can use. The Racine Urban Garden Network has places that you can rent a plot, and they're located kind of all over. Unless you're in the loop though and know the people that work with those, it might just seem kind of random to have, here's an empty lot, somebody put some garden beds in there, and then you see a person show up and they start planting things, and a local resident might not understand, can I have one of these? So getting into the community and kind of spreading that word and talking about that could be something that we could do more of to help people understand that it's available.
Yeah, so I think that goes back to the resources that people aren't using. Is that this is a way, if you live in an apartment, or you live, you're renting a house and you can't really do anything to the yard, these are opportunities to do some of those things, which you are linking exactly to the other podcast we're working on Going Green, right? That's a great way to reduce your carbon footprint because you're going out, you're doing it. So, and one of the things we talked about in there, and I think here too, when I cook, I have a much greater appreciation for the food I'm making than when I make something prepackaged, right?
Correct.
And having a nice restaurant meal, maybe I get a different connection there because I see the love that chef put into it, right? And the techniques that I may not have. But I bet if you grow your food, that's not something I've done before, but I know when we grow our herbs, I'm using something that we have, done, the mint or the basil or whatever.
And studies show that when kids actually get involved in, youth get involved in growing food, they're more apt to try new things. They're more apt to actually like it. I think when you see that process from seed to harvest, There's a sense of pride in accomplishing that. Plus, I think it takes the guesswork out of where did this come from. So if you look at a can of corn, and well, I always tell my students that if you can go outside and you can pick it, or it's walking around and you, dare I say, kill it, harvest it, and use it, the healthier it's going to be. If I look at a can of corn, just the can itself, okay, that looks nothing like what is out there, the outside of the can. So, but anyway, the going back to the gardening stuff, I've been working actually this last summer on a community garden, one of the Racine Urban Garden Network's community gardens on Villa Street, just 2 houses down from the cop house that burned. And actually it's just at the corner of 12th Street, so it's not far from Park. Just go up and then turn left onto Villa Street there. But there are plots that we've created that are a sharing garden, so you don't have to be an Urban Garden Network person. You don't have to rent a plot. We've planted and cultivated some stuff that people can come in and just take if they want. And we're trying to get people in the neighborhood to realize that, come join us and working in the garden, and you're free to take whatever, you come up with when it becomes ready to harvest. But that there's an element to that too, that you have to build relationships with people and build trust with people, that they understand, why are you doing this in my neighborhood? If I don't live right there. And so just getting in some people right there, on that block to buy in, I think is key for it to be successful. So,
And I'm assuming, sustainable as well, because if you're coming in from outside the area, maybe you can do one, but if you can get the neighborhood to buy in, then you can go and start another one in another neighborhood and kind of grow it.
Yeah.
And I wonder, how is the city sort of dealing with those sorts of things? Are they kind of going, hey, these are foreclosed lots, that are you being able to get space, or is it pretty difficult?
I
think so. Actually, right next to the garden is an abandoned house that is slated to be torn down. So the garden could expand to that empty lot once that house is gone. And I'm not so into that aspect of it that I know, what they've worked out with the city, but I believe that's part of the whole reason behind doing those community gardens.
Yeah, and I think it's a great way for communities to kind of build something and take those houses that are making a neighborhood look worse and causing problems in the neighborhood and turn them into something useful. I know in Detroit, I don't know if they're doing gardening, but they've definitely taken a lot of abandoned spaces and turned it into green space. Because it's more useful to the community, and it alleviates a lot of these other problems outside of just the food issue. But I think this is a great way to sort of metaphorically kill 2 birds with 1 stone.
Right.
Well, and if you think about, when you turn spaces into green space, just incorporating plants that are food can be a great way to help landscape the area, as well as, why not plant several apple trees or, other fruit trees, raspberry bushes. They grow wild in Wisconsin anyway. Why not put some where they're going to thrive because they're native to the area anyway. Plus, then they offer, food option for people. Herbs make really great, borders on some things. They can fill in and kind of take over. Some herbs do, but that can be.
Don't plant your mint plant as a border. It will take over everything.
Don't plant mint. Don't plant
balm. It'll just go crazy. But they're really hardy too. So you could even chop them back and they always come back again. So along those lines, so I have a friend that has done just that. She just lives kind of a couple blocks away from the Villa Street Garden, and there was an article featured with her in it in the Journal Times just a couple days ago. I can share that with you. Her name is Hillary Chattel. Her and her husband moved to the city from Caledonia because they wanted to kind of get more involved in their community, and she loves to garden. So her backyard is like it's pretty cool. She's got so many different things going on. They've got 4 different raised beds that they have filled with different things. She grows more food in her backyard. You could probably feed, I don't know, 4 families with some of the stuff that they grow in their backyard. And so because she has such an overabundance, she started a food is free chapter in Racine, and it's kind of a movement. There was a group in Milwaukee that she got in touch with, and the idea is if you have an overabundance of produce from your own garden, set up a table in your front yard or in a certain location and just offer to give it away and let people in the neighborhood access it if they don't have, maybe they live in an apartment, they don't really have a place, they live too far from the garden and they don't want to go on down there, or they just don't know what to do with a garden. Some people just don't have time to tend a garden. But she has that out there. And then because word has spread with that, there have been some local organizations and churches that have started putting, coming by and dropping off dry goods and things like that as well, hygiene products, things like that, to kind of give away. And the slogan is, take what you need, leave what you can. So the idea is, take something that you can use, and if there's something that you have that you wouldn't use, set it on the table, somebody else might use it. And it's just free, it's just there.
And what about, so for our students, kind of to round this out, like if they are experiencing some food insecurities, what are some of the resources that they can access and to, when school's not in session, they're not getting their food or whatever, what are some resources for them?
I think first and foremost, the Racine Food Bank. You can make an appointment to pick up food at the food bank. Also, I know a huge distributor of food is, it's called Kingdom Manna. It's run through the Kingdom Builders Church that is on Rapids Drive. They do giveaways at the parking lot next to Horlick Field. They change their location every once in a while, and depending on weather and the season, sometimes they're not able to be outside as much. So I think in the winter months they do things more at their warehouse. But to find them, you can just look them up on Facebook. You have to make an appointment to go and pick up the food, and sometimes it can be a longer process. With COVID now, they've really made sure that things were safe for people to pick up, and they're committed to actually still being there and doing that throughout this time anyway. And there are lots of churches that do meals. I can't remember what it's called. It's right on the roundabout downtown. They do Food for the Soul on Friday nights. There's several of them. You could probably come up with a list of different places, but a lot of times they're just kind of word of mouth, or people that that are part of those faith communities kind of spread the word to people that they know. But there's really I think probably the transportation issue is probably one of the biggest things for people, is that if you don't have transportation to go pick it up, that's what's tough. But I think there's a lot of resources around here that no one should really have to go hungry. I think there's plenty of food that it's just a matter of getting it to the people or letting people know where to go and get it.
And so we'll try and put together a list and have that either as an end card for this or link it with the podcast. But I think that having that list. And if you are lucky enough where you have access, or your family gardens, and you're always like trying to find everybody and their sister to give your cucumbers away to,
Yeah,
places you can donate those
right.
items to, and where they will get used by people who need them.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. Maybe
You're
later we'll
welcome.
come back and talk more about some other ways that perhaps you can use your space to create some food for yourself and your family. But this has been a great time chatting with you, and thank you, and have a good day.
All right, thank you.